Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. Today I'm doing a review of my 2021 Harley Davidson Pan America. And I am excited to do this review. I've been stoked to get this bike, and the more I've been riding it, the more I've been waiting, thinking about all the things I want to share. Just finally getting to experience it for myself, and wanting to show everyone what this is about. If you're in the market, then you've come to the right place. I'm hoping to cover a lot of the important things that I think everyone's going to want to know. And so I want to start today by doing a quick walk around before we jump on the bike and cover some more. So here it is in the Baja Orange. This is the Special. And so the Special is going to give you features like the engine guards, the active suspension, the active ride height adjustment. Really sharp looking bike. You got to see it in person to really appreciate it, but man, it has such a modern look. It's a head turner, and I think it's just got such a unique style. So I really love what they've done with it. Build quality, choice of materials, whether it's design elements where they've integrated black components. I mean, even the silencer is just a really good looking stock silencer. Rear tail isn't totally ridiculous and something that is out of place. I have no problem with what's on it. No need to change it in my view. It looks great stock. Tail lights, headlights, really nice. So coming up, first thing that you'll see is kind of the level of the passenger seat. The passenger seat is well above the rider, and I'll get into that I guess while we're riding. But what's really nice about this setup, and it's not obviously the only bike like this, but the setup that it offers you is if you ride a lot two up, it really gives your rider the ability to see above you without interfering or having to necessarily crank their head on the left or right side of you. So as you're sitting up, you've got such a great view on top of the bike, and I think it makes for some really comfortable two-up riding. You'll notice this seat says demo. This is in fact a demo seat. This is the low seat on the bike. This gives you an additional 1 inch of ground clearance for the rider, drops you down an inch essentially. So when you're vertically challenged like myself, 5'8", 5'9", depending on the day, this is a really nice. Now, even on the stock seat with this suspension, I can flat foot this bike. That means both feet on the ground at a red light. And that is something that I never ever expected. So again, I'll get into all the specifics of all that, but just to do a walk around, show you everything. This has the spoked wheels that look really awesome. Bike's a bit dirty, been going into the dirt and practicing a bit. It's a 17-inch rear and a 19-inch front. It's a 120 70 19 up front, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a 170 60 17 in the rear. So that opens you up to some really good 50-50 tire choices, and the ability to kind of pick and choose between a wide variety of tires. 17 is such a common size. Fit and finish is excellent. Everything they've done, the paint work is really nice. No orange peel. It looks like a really high-end paint job. One thing that's really nice, you'll see they've integrated a lot of venting. It is a water-cooled motor, but the fact that they have been able to add the additional venting, again, things I'll get into as we ride, but it really does help dissipate heat, and so that the rider isn't feeling it. You can take a look here at this really cool, unique headlight. High beam is actually going to be in the center right here. This is going to be for your cornering lamp. So basically the idea is that at different degrees of lean angle, the lights will kick on so that the road as you're turning is constantly illuminated. So there's a lot of technology built into this bike. Obviously the suspension being one of the main points, and then of course the lights, the lean angle sensitive ABS, all the various riding modes, the active suspension. The suspension also sets the sag constantly, so the rider is always set at the correct settings, which is fantastic. Again, we'll touch base on all this as we get into the review more, but just as a walk around, let's go up to the dashboard. Let's take a look at our controls. So up here on our controls, you're going to notice initially it's a little busy. You've got a lot of buttons here, and once you get through it, it's really simple and actually becomes quite second nature. So let me kind of go through it with you, give you a brief little intro. Now, just to start with the screen, which is already on, the way that you turn on your ignition on this bike is right here. So you're going to flip that. That would be off, and this is going to be on. Of course, as I turn it back on, you can hear the fuel pump priming in this situation. Go into the screen. So right now I have it in what I would call the busiest configuration, and that's because, as you can see, all these quadrants are filled with data, and this data in each quadrant is programmable. So you can pick and choose what shows in these quadrants, or nothing at all if you choose, which is how it comes standard. I personally love data, so I added everything that I think is valuable to me while I'm riding. So in this case, you know, the odometer in this center screen, by the way, this is a touch screen as well, and I'll demonstrate that for you. And yes, it does work with gloves, is managed through either this control panel. So you can go through the various menus by going through here. As you can see, this is showing you the multi-pages, because that is essentially what you're going. You're going to click this button, and that corresponds with a various page. So this would be your music if I had it paired and paired my headset, which at the moment is not paired. This is going to be for the motorcycle. This is going to give you data with your TPMS. Again, part of the special is you come with TPMS on it as well. So as you can see, that there is a replica of this knob here, and it's not a knob, it's a push button, but you know what I mean. And if you want to enter the data, you can either click on the diagnostic. This one takes a second to load just because it's actually, you know, going through diagnostics, but you can go here, accept, there you go, it's doing it. And or you could go through here, and then we'll just go back, we'll click back, and I'm doing that by clicking this button. And we'll go to the other menu screen. So we have our settings. Now, when we go through our settings, this is where, of course, all the basically control can be set. So you can go to ride customization, and this is going to allow you to change your ride modes. And, you know, while we're here, why don't we just talk about the ride modes for a second? So all your modes are selectable while riding. Through the right hand throttle side, there's a mode button. This is your mode button. So as you're riding, you can quickly change modes, and you can do it while you're riding. So let's go through our ride modes for a moment. So ride modes. So each ride mode can be activated or deactivated. So if you deactivate it, it won't be selectable whether you click the button, and it won't be shown on here. So, and each mode can be calibrated to the rider. So let's say I want to go to my sport mode, and in my sport mode I want to turn it off. So now I no longer have the sport mode active. It's grayed itself out. So let's turn it back on. Then you have your off-road plus mode. Then, as you can see, you have a custom modes, A and B as well. And custom off-road plus, then on the side, you can cater each of these to what you want. So I have created an A and B. So let me show you what your options are. So when you go, it's going to ask you, do you want to copy from the other mode? I'm going to say no. Perfect. So now we're going to go in. These are all the options that you can select for that mode. So let's start with engine mapping. So in A, I have it in the sport setting. My engine braking, I have it -1. And I'll get into that more while we'll ride, but basically I don't really care for engine braking. Usually I like engine braking on the lighter side, mostly because these bikes inherently have enough engine braking as is, and too much engine braking is going to load up the forks when you come off of the throttle, and it's almost as though you're applying the brakes before you even get to the brakes, and I don't like that. I like a neutral chassis, so I went with -1, which is the lowest setting you can go. Throttle response, I have this on max, and you can go again, same as all the settings, -1, base, +1, or max. Traction control, you have only 3 options here: sport, road, and rain. I'm running it on sport currently, so that's going to be my A mode. Actually, I'm sorry, let me go back real quick. I think I missed an option. Yes, anti-lock braking, I have it on off-road. Suspension dampening, I have it on off-road soft. And then you have off-road firm as a choice. Off-road firm is my choice for off-roading. Now, this is regarding your active suspension. So there's an option that says adaptive ride height, which is essentially what everyone's talking about, where the bike gets to a stop and drops itself down. So you click adaptive ride height. I currently have it in auto. Now, the difference between auto with short delay, and auto with long delay is essentially once the bike drops, short delay means that it's going to recover back to its regular height. Faster, long, it's going to take longer to get there. I just have it set on auto, and I'm very, very happy with that setting. Lock at ride height would mean that you've turned it off. Essentially, the ride height of the bike at its usual height or normal height is where it's going to stay, and it's not going to do anything different. But for me, it's a game changer to have it set in auto, and I don't ever see myself changing that for any reason. So that's my A setting. With B, you can make it whatever you want. I've made my B setting more of an off-road mode, so I still have my settings relatively the same. Off-road plus, I haven't played with the settings here, so this is however it was delivered to me. Off-road, there's a rain option in here. Engine braking is set base, and in here, throttle response +1. Traction control sport. These are all default settings. Anti-lock braking off. Suspension dampening is on off-road soft here. I would probably say let's go firm, because that's usually what seems to be better setting there. And then adaptive ride height is also auto. That's where I would keep that. So that is basically how you can customize everything. Hold control. Oh, why did it turn off on me? Maybe have it on too long. So we'll go back real quick. So we're going to go back to navigate that menu. Here's our settings again. Pretty quick and easy to get back into this stuff. Go to ride customization. So hold control. Hold control is a feature I'm going to show you while we ride. Basically, when you get to a hill, you're going to pull on your brake. Pulling on your brake is going to lock the brakes so that if you're on a really steep hill and you don't want the bike to roll backward, the bike is holding itself. A lot of vehicles have this. Other motorcycles in the industry already have this, like a hill hold control. That's exactly what hold control is. So it's essentially going to hold the bike whether you're on flat ground or a hill, and the rider can do it. It'll hold itself there for, I think it's like 5-10 seconds, and then it will let itself go. So it gives you enough time to get started and moving. And then bank lamp aiming is the light in which I showed you, and that's going to help you while banking. So then, and you can adjust the angles in which that is activated. In appearance, you can adjust screen brightness, you can customize your dashboard. So when I was explaining earlier that I have it in the more complex setting, that's because I have it in the widget setting, and they call these widgets on the corner. The simple setting is basically going to bring it to exactly like the dialogue shows here, where you essentially just have your basic data. There's what it's not showing you there is you're still going to have your gear indicator and fuel and all that stuff, of course, the basic information. But I really like the widget setting, and you can customize what widgets same way in here. So we're going to go back again, back again, because we're already there. So we'll go back to our menu. We'll just click home. Takes us back home. Perfect. So that's a quick little walk around there. You can see we have TPMS showing there. We have our range and odometer, currently 753 miles on the bike, current fuel, battery, water temp, oil temp, etc. So all the data that we need showing on the screen, and I think it's perfect. Fuel cap filler, random, but no key needed anymore. Just lift up, it's unlocked, open, cool. So no need when you get to a stop to pull out a key anymore. Another look at the Olin steering dampener, part of the special, comes on the package as well. So again, here it is. We'll do our little walk around again. Really nice looking wheels, and then we're gonna jump on and go for a ride. So here it is. One thing, if I may, as I'm walking around, things coming to me. I will just say, I don't know what happened with Harley on these. This is probably the worst. Maybe there's others that somebody will mention, but this is probably one of the worst I can recall on handguards. So the handguard, how good is it? Oh, it broke. No, it didn't break, but that's how it's held in. It's literally just clipped in. So don't expect this to do anything other than block the wind from your hands. If you go down, that isn't going to do anything. So might be worth investing if you're actually going to do any serious off-roading with this bike, or just want the extra protection, to replace those. I personally have never been a big wraparound handguard guy, so those don't actually bother me too much. I just surprised how kind of cheap and poor they are. And then last thing before we jump on, but I will touch base on it, is this is how you adjust your windscreen. It's designed to be used with your left hand, of course, so that your throttle hand stays on. So I will demonstrate with my left hand awkwardly, is to go down. This is the down position. It clicks. You have your middle position. clicks. And then your highest position. Oh, I did go to the highest position. That's the middle position. So the middle position is the most vertical position. The lowest position, as you can see, it's up and back slightly. And then the lowest position is kind of low and then kind of angled back a little bit too. So the wind protection on this bike, again, I don't want to touch base on too much because we're going to talk about it as we jump on the bike, but it's phenomenal. So anyways, here it is. Here's a quick walk around. We showed you kind of the suspension, show a forks, show a shock, all electronic preload that is. And we went over our tires. We've got our pegs. This bike does have the adjustable brake, which basically is toolless. And what this allows you to do is to raise the location depending on if you're wearing a boot or not. So essentially what this is going to do is if you're wearing a boot and you're going to be standing, it gives you a little higher location for the brake. It's cool. You know, is it something I see a ton of people using? No, but that's something we'll talk about more as we start riding. So here it is. Let's jump on and go for a ride. All right, so let's jump on and go for a little ride. And before everyone asks, these are the Climb Badlands gloves. So you have the whole Climb Badlands outfit, but not wearing it all today. So let's take her off the center stand onto the side stand, and then we will lift up the side stand. So one of the things I should point out is it took me a minute to kind of figure out where the side stand was. It's actually this little flap right there. So that's a kind of an awkward spot, and the side stand's a little bit weird in itself. The center stand's really easy, normal to use there, nothing unusual. All right, so here we go. Basically, like I showed you, we are gonna flip on our ignition, and as soon as you flip on the ignition, of course you can't see it, but the bike just dropped down. So now we're ready to go. Fire it up. We're gonna hit the center button here. And there she is. Now the bike's already warm, motor's already warm, that is, so I'm going to give it a couple blips. So that's just a little idle blip, and let's go. All right. So when I went to go pick up this bike, and I had never even seen one. It was just, hey, it's arrived. So I go pick it up, and you know, I ride a KTM 890 Rally, which is a tall, very off-road oriented adventure bike. And at 5'8", 5'9", like I mentioned on a good day, I'm used to a tall bike, and I'm used to barely being able to touch the ground, and I'm comfortable with it. So when I came to the Pan Am, I figured that I was going to have kind of a similar struggle on the bike. And the minute I got on it, I thought, is there a low setting? Is the bike already squatted down? And he said no. He's like, not yet. So I turn on the ignition, it drops itself down even farther, and I'm going, are you kidding? Thank you. And I'm sitting here, you know, I mean, it doesn't even matter if it's not an adventure bike. Very rarely can I flat foot, both feet down, on a motorcycle, let alone on a bike like this, you know, an adventure bike. So that was just hard to believe. And then I was thinking, well, do I have ground clearance? You know, if I go off-road, I mean, am I just going to be touching the skid plate on everything? But then as you start riding and this thing lifts itself up, you kind of have to wrap your head around that whole thing. So I think it's an important thing to mention, because a lot of people always are going to run into that concern of getting on a bike like this. And if you're vertically challenged, you know, that's something to consider. Nobody wants to go dumping the bike all around. And you know, a lot of crashes, as a lot of adventure guys know, happen. Crashes or tip overs, whatever you want to call them,
they happen at a very low speed. You get to a stop, or you get a stall or a flame out, and next thing you know you can't find your footing. Bam, bike just falls to the ground. And it sucks, but it's kind of what happens. But when you have a bike like this, which I don't anticipate a lot of people doing any hardcore off-roading with, if I'm honest, but it's nice to be able to have that extra confidence from the low seat height and the ability to put both feet down. It really makes you feel comfortable. But the other big factor about that is, usually for me, an adventure bike that's tall and kind of cumbersome, it doesn't encourage me to do a lot of short trips or city stuff. I don't particularly want to go to do like, little, I guess, city riding where it's stop and go freeway traffic, or city streets, stop go, just because kind of every time you get to the red light, it's like, okay, get ready, get off the left side, go put your foot down, get ready to balance, okay, we're gonna get started, and do that process over and over. To me, it just kind of gets annoying, where, I guess I have other motorcycles, so, I'd rather just take something else like that and go that route. Oh, that's convenient, let's just run the red light. And, so to me, that's a huge advantage. And when I got on that, and the way I felt on this bike, like, immediately was comfortable. I got on it and I instantly felt like it's like, did I own this bike without knowing it? I just got on it, everything felt good, everything was really easy to use, and that is a huge plus. So if you're watching this, you're already here and you're maybe a little shorter and you're wondering how that's going to help, just know that it's a game changer. I mean, you are going to be instantly comfortable on this bike, without question in my mind. So we're going to indicate left. This bike does have self-canceling turn indicators, so once I make this corner, I'm not going to cancel anything out, and you're just going to take a look, and as soon as I came up, it's going to cancel itself out, just like that. Really nice little features, not things that are revolutionary or aren't already existing in other bikes, but just conveniences, things that are nice to have. So moving on, the screen right now, like, the sun is hitting me straight in the face, and I've got a tinted visor on. Seeing the screen is clear as day, the colors are correct, the angle's proper, and even when the sun is following me, and that's usually when it's worst on the screen has I've never, I guess, encountered a situation where the screen lost visibility for me, or I couldn't see the data or anything. It's a great setup. They've set it up properly, so I like that, and it has a good anti-glare finish on the screen, which really helps. One of the things that I think is also important to talk about is this bike does not have a hydraulic clutch, and usually on a bike this size, hydraulic clutches are pretty standard. I mean, my GS has it, the bigger KTMs have it, and so when I was a little surprised when they went to a cable clutch, and I was concerned what the clutch pull was going to feel like, and the clutch pull is shockingly light, I would say. I mean, usually, like on the KTMs, again, to reference, you know, they make devices for cable clutches that essentially offset the pivot, therefore making the pivot way easier, like Camel ADV makes a tool like that. And it's really great for the 890, with the exception, I don't run it, but I've used it on my 790, and that's why I don't run it on the 890, not because it didn't work or had issues. It just, in the process of making the clutch lighter, you just lose feel. The clutch just becomes absolutely numb, and I love feel, a front end feel. I like to understand what's going on underneath me, a lot of communication from the bike and the chassis. And when I lose feel, it's something so important as the clutch, especially on a bike like that where you're spending a lot of time on the dirt, probably more than you are on the road. That was kind of not a good deal for me. So this clutch has tremendous feel, and it's a lightweight pull. It's not tiresome whatsoever. You could ride this bike all freaking day long, not ever worry about it. Like right here, look at this, I'm flat-footed, like knees bent even. I mean, it's hard to believe. And that stop and go that's sudden, like right here. Boop, stop. Bike's already low. And you can tell the bike's lowered because the suspension light starts blinking. And when the suspension is blinking there, which of course I'm moving now, so it's not, That's how you know that things are active. But finishing on the suspension, or excuse me, on the clutch, the clutch pull, the clutch feel, and the engagement shifting gears, it's great. I have no complaints. I'm very, very happy with it, and I'm probably also even happier with it than I thought, because it exceeded that heavy pull that I was sort of expecting. And a lot of guys that I ride with are always concerned about clutch pull, just due to the fact that, you know, they might have injuries, hand injuries, things that are, you know, that they will just really be unable to ride for a long amount of time unless they've got a lighter clutch. So I don't think those guys are going to have any complaints about this setup. Brake feel, you know, Brembo brake system, brake feel is excellent. I'm not sure what people are doing today driving, but I guess that's every day. Brake feel is phenomenal. Brake power is exceptional. I've done a few brake tests on the bike where you just absolutely slam on them a few times, no noticeable fade, and the braking performance, especially this brake unless you're in an off-road mode, is a link to brake, so the front brake is actuating front and rear, and because of that you get this insane one finger brake performance. You just clamp on it one finger and it's just, I mean, yeah, it's wild. So amazing brakes. Now the big factor in all this is this engine, this new motor, water-cooled motor. Now every time I think of a Harley, I think of my Road Glide, and I think of that style motor, those vibrations, that character, that traditional Harley feel that one would expect. And like I mentioned on the Walkaround, if you have a Harley or you've ridden a Harley, you know, you kind of got to throw everything you know out the window and start from scratch in terms of what you think, what you know when you jump on a Pan America. Like, this is as European bike feeling as you'd get. I mean, it really feels like you are on a KTM or a Ducati, for the most part, rebranded as a Harley Davidson. It really, the engine doesn't resemble anything like any other Harley I've ever ridden. It revs high, it makes 150 horsepower, 90 some odd foot-pounds of torque. Bike weighs, I think, 560 pounds, give or take, curb weight, so, you know, fueled up, etc. And what's really astonishing about this bike is the fact that it actually isn't even happy at a low RPM. You know, like, I'm at 4,000 right now, which is pretty much a cruising RPM for this. And fourth gear, you know, you just get, let's say, 50% throttle. You know, I mean, that just jumped almost 20 miles an hour and without grabbing a gear, coming from 4,000 RPM. And the higher the RPM goes, the harder it pulls, and it doesn't ever sign off, which is amazing for any engine. That's a characteristic I personally love. But the thing about this bike is how fun. Like, you constantly laugh and have fun. Initially you're laughing and having fun, going, this can't be a Harley, no frickin' way. But then you just realize, like, you can take this bike, you can drop the bags, you can leave everything at home, you can take it out in a naked trim and go to the canyons and absolutely rip through the twisties and have a ball on this bike and have a crap ton of fun. I mean, it's just, you're gonna be like, you're gonna have a good day. And then you can go home, you can throw all those bags back on, you can put your wife on the back, or your significant other, and you can just go two up and go on an adventure and cover states and countries, and do it in the utmost comfort, and have that motor that can do that low speed, fun, you know, off-road, fire road type of riding. And then you can get on the asphalt and absolutely cruise, or you can get onto the highway and have this really calm, smooth motor with gobs and gobs of power, so that you can you know, go and have fun. And that is really what I think is so incredible about what Harley has been able to accomplish with this bike, is they've fueled it well, so you don't have that choppiness or rough throttle that you might have, you know, seen in other bikes, where, you know, you go from zero throttle on, it's like, ugh, it's surging, you know, which usually the aftermarket corrects by putting a richer fuel map or changing the ECU. And like, for example, if you've ridden off-road dirt bikes, you know, KTM dirt bikes, Husqvarna, Honda 450L, that style bikes, all these fuel injected modern bikes with emissions, you get on them and it's like the first thing you got to do is flash the ECU, because there's such an abrupt on and off throttle that low speed modulation is brutal, and sometimes it just can be the difference between making it or crashing or not. And so to have the fueling and to just, they've really done their homework. That's all I can say. Like, it's amazing to me that I can actually compare this to a 21 GSA. I can actually compare this to a Ducati Multistrada, and those are just not comparisons I thought this bike would allow me to make, but yet it is right there, and it actually is outclassing some of these bikes in certain categories. I mean, there's certain things that I was thinking, well, I wish I had. For example, this bike doesn't have a quick shifter. Now, on my KTM, again referencing that just because I ride that bike a lot, so and some of you could care less about a KTM 890, but the bike has a quick shifter is my point. And you know, honestly, that quick shifter is about as rough as it's more rough than me shifting this bike. Not more rough, it's more rough using the quick shifter than not using the quick shifter on this bike. I find that really shocking. I mean, my hands right here, that was 4th to 5th, effortless, like no drama, no blip, you know, cut weirdness, super smooth, clean and easy with me manipulating it. So and the transmission is phenomenal in this bike, like super positive feel between the gears. You can really feel through your boot exactly where you're at. You know, if you've made a clean solid shift, that you're really in that next gear, and that feels, I think, is really nice. When you stand on the bike, you have good access to all your controls, foot controls and everything. So they've done a great job here. I mean, they've really done their homework. Even these mirrors, I gotta tell you, are exceptional mirrors. I mean, they're kind of adapted that Ram style where you can easily pivot it, move it up and down, and then once you set them in place, they don't budge. So the quality, the fit and finish, things they've done, I'm really happy, and I'm just really impressed. Next thing is wind protection. So on a bike like this, that's a very important part. You're going to cover a lot of ground potentially. You're going to spend a lot of hours on this bike, and if you're anything like me, I might do 400 miles a day. Depends where I'm going and the type of trip that I'm doing. And the wind protection on this bike is, I would argue, like staggeringly good. I'm going to do something here and pass. Oh. So that is just blistering speed that you get out of this machine. God, it's so fun to do that. I know that probably wasn't the most it wasn't the right move, but oh man, it just makes you want to go. The wind protection, as I was mentioning, is phenomenal. The windscreen has the 3 adjustments like I showed you on the Walkaround. However, on this setting, which is the middle setting, you really don't find yourself needing to do much, meaning that whether I'm on a side street like I am or highway, I haven't found a need to really adjust the windscreen at all. Now we're at like 75, let's call it freeway speed, and I feel nothing in my helmet. So I've ridden this bike 90, I would say 98% of the time, or 99, because the only time I haven't ridden with my traditional helmet is, which is a Climb Krios Pro, by the way. So it's got a sun visor on it, traditional moto style helmet. The only time that I have not used it was for this ride for my moto vlog. And with that helmet, which is what I think a majority of riders are going to wear, you get absolutely no wind buffeting. You can absolutely turn your head left and right and be at freeway speeds. There's no strain on your neck. You feel nothing. There's perfect wind deflection, no turbulence of any kind. And on the helmet that I'm using today, which is my Schubert, which does not have a sun visor, it's just a modular helmet. Of course, I feel nothing at all either. So I would argue this is better wind protection than my GSA. How that's possible, I don't know. But the wind protection is fantastic. Wind protection, I guess this isn't so much in that category, but one of the things that's important is the heat from the motor. So in a lot of the slower paced stuff, these big bikes, they run hot. Currently my water temperature is 198 degrees Fahrenheit, and I feel nothing from the engine. I feel no motor heat. I don't feel any heat really at all. It's just a relatively warm day, so I'm comfortable. And that's another really nice factor. The way that I showed those air ducts in the side, they also push air that's coming in from the front of the bike, and it ventilates right onto your legs and your knees. And that also just kind of helps keep you ventilated. I'm sure on a cooler day, you know, if you're wearing cooler gear that blocks the wind, you're not going to really suffer from that. But obviously, I guess you really don't pay the price in the summer, and I'm okay with wearing gear in the winter and not, you know. I guess what I'm saying is, it's nice to not have to be stuck with the motor heat as opposed to letting me gear up depending on the conditions, and in the summer I don't have to deal with it. So motor heat's really nice. Like, they've done a really good job of thinking about that. I don't feel anything from this engine. If I do, it's really minimal. Even at a red light when you're at a dead stop in traffic, nothing. You hear the fans come on and you feel just a little bit of increased heat, of course, but nothing I would complain about, let's put it that way. With these gloves, as I mentioned, all the switchgear here, it's kind of hard to feel, so I'm still clicking a button and then looking down to reference and make sure that, you know, I actually clicked it. You get used to it, and a few times just click, and, you know, it does work. But again, I wish that there was better feel from the switchgear on this bike. As you can see, like, going through this road at this, like, relatively, you know, 30s, I'm in third gear, 3,000 RPM, just about 3,500, and there's no like abnormal action from the bike. Going up a hill now, I'm at 5% throttle input. Bike just effortless. Everything is effortless, and to be able to use that power and to be so smooth with the bike, I think I can't even say the GSA is this smooth, and it's really hard for me to say that. I just can't believe that it's this good. Gonna get to the red light here and show you. So you'll see, if you watch my display, you're gonna see that the suspension's gonna come on. Here you go. This is the indicator. Hopefully you can see that the suspension is in the low setting. Now, just so we're clear, like, you don't feel the suspension lowering and raising. So as a rider, if you're waiting for that sort of like I'm on hydraulics feel, you're never gonna feel it. It's seamless. I don't even really know, other than I'm like, oh, here I am. I can touch the ground with both feet. I guess it did it. Other than that, like, it's just doing its thing, and it immediately picks back up. You don't notice it. There's no feedback from it. It's doing its job, and it's not interfering with the ride. And I mean, that to me is a win. So it's a game-changing feature. Like, I'm actually wondering how it's going to affect me when I get on my other bikes now that are way taller and don't have that. It's going to make it tough. So it's going to just open up real quick here. Fourth gear. Oh, that motor sings too. And it sings. It makes such a nice sound. Even with that corked up exhaust. That's what's so nice. Like, imagine with a slip-on, if you want that, it would just, I think it would just sound beautiful. Now, I'll admit I'm not much for a loud adventure bike because I'm putting a lot of time on these bikes, a lot of miles in a stint. Last thing I care to hear is the whole time. So I actually really happy with the stock exhaust, and I've been that way with most of the bikes, or a slip-on with the decibel killer in it. So it sounds great to me. Is it your traditional Harley? No. But honestly, I'm happy that it's not. I mean, I think I like this bike because it's the way it is. So it's exceptional. Going through the display, I hope that you can see the display as clear as I can. Really, really easy to see everything, and having all the data there is great. I mean, just to see the tire pressures, I geek out to see, you know, how much is it rising, how much is it going up, you know, did I set it right, is my cold temperature good, having my range there all the time, just everything I need, you know, temperatures, everything that I feel is important to have is there. And if you don't want it, you can remove it, and if you want more, you can adjust it. You can do everything. You can even have it tell you what song you're playing on your Bluetooth. So, you know, you really have everything accessible. You can download the Harley Davidson app and push your navigation to it. I haven't done that yet personally. I just typically will use a RAM mount on my iPhone. It's just easy to do, but I will try it because why not? Talking about the suspension. So we've talked about the suspensions, how much I like the fact that it, you know, goes up and down, and all those features. But let's talk about the suspension dampening and some of the other aspects regarding the suspension. So the active part of the suspension is really adjusting your preload. That's what is active part of the suspension. The dampening is essentially fixed. So it's not going to, that you have, you know, you have your options for soft and firm, and they're going to do exactly what they say. I have found on this bike that in the off-road trim, even if it's a fire road, the off-road trim in the firm setting is what I prefer. It feels best on the bike. It feels best when you're going over certain terrain, because, you know, you hit that occasional whoop or whoops, bumps, rocks, sharp edges, and in the soft setting, it kind of blows through the stroke, and it's a little wallowy. The firm setting just feels a little bit more predictable, and the feedback to me is it's more comforting, and that gives me confidence. So that's what I prefer, and that seems to be where I'm at. Now, when on the road setting, which is what I'm on, and this whole time we've been in the review, we've been in our road setting. And just to show you, you can change modes while you're riding. So if I want to go out of a mode, I'm giving throttle input sport mode, which is actually going to take me back to the firm suspension, which was immediate. The way I get to the firm throttle mapping is I actually have to let off the throttle, and it's only 1 second. Now you can see that the S, which stands for the sport, background is red, and when the background turned red, that means that mode is now active. And I guess I'll keep it in the sport mode for a second just to give you a little feedback, but you can immediately feel the stiffer setting. You can immediately get you're getting more movement in the bike. It's not as plush. And you know, you might think that for like aggressive canyon riding, this would be really nice. But I found that, especially with Southern California roads, the softer, the standard setting, I actually prefer. It eats up the road better, and it actually makes the chassis more stable. So I would actually suggest just running it on the traditional baseline setting, or the softer setting, whatever you want to call it, for the road, unless you're going to be riding on a really perfect road, or where conditions will allow you to run on that stiffer setting, or you're just riding that aggressively where, you know, the soft setting is too soft, and then no problem. But for the way I've been riding this bike, this has been a little bit on the unnecessary side. So we'll keep it in here. We're going to go through a few through corners coming up here. Really clean transmission shifting on the downshifts. Yeah, so it's just stiff. Another gear. Here we go. Woo! Oh, just wakes up and goes and goes and goes and goes. Oh my gosh, it just doesn't stop freaking pulling. And it sounds so good. And this is on the low engine braking, so you can get an idea. It's still got plenty of engine braking. I haven't given any brake application yet. Throttle's so smooth and clean, even in the sports mode. Just turn up here. Ah, beautiful day. So, I mean, barely any throttle application. I mean, this bike just feels half its weight. I mean, it's amazing. Like, you can just change the direction so effortlessly. We're gonna stay in 4th gear here, 4,500 RPM, 5,000. Gonna trail brake slightly into this corner, grab another downshift, and nice and clean exits. I mean, and we're on a, 560-pound adventure bike doing this. How is that not incredible? I mean, it's so fun and lively, and yet just one click of your mode button and you're back to this docile, smooth adventure bike. I mean, that to me is what is so amazing. And don't misunderstand me when I'm comparing it to these other bikes. Like, the BMW GSA is a freaking amazing machine, but really where the biggest difference is on this bike, actually I'm gonna go straight. The biggest difference is here is the GSA doesn't feel this light ever, and it's not going to give you this type of feedback ever. Like, it's just, there's certain aspects of character that you get from the Harley that keep it fun, and I think that's what a lot of these other bikes are missing, is the Harley managed to keep just enough character in that motor and enough rawness to keep it exciting all the time. And then let's go back to our boring road mode. Okay, 4th gear, and we're back to this soft, docile adventure bike, and we'll stand. We'll enjoy just adventuring, and we have the flexibility to do so many things. And I think that is where the ability to do so many things so well is what is impressive. And we stemmed all on this from the talk about suspension. And I guess where I'm at on the suspension is, it's not the best suspension out there because it's a suspension that's doing so many different, I guess, things, right? It's got the ability to take you off-road, and it's got the ability to be well damped on the road, and it's constantly setting your sag. So the geometry of the bike or the chassis attitude is always going to be pretty damn good, right? So whether you put a passenger, it's not going to be raked out anymore where the rear end's squatted. It's going to immediately set the sag back to that 30% mark. So whether you're adding all your gear and your bags, the bike is always going to ride in that sweet spot where the chassis attitude is correct and where it needs to be. And that alone is huge, right? Because how many people buy a bike, don't even know what sag is, ride the bike forever, and then once in a while somebody might come across a suspension tuner and says, hey, have you ever set your sag? No, I haven't. I've only ridden 20,000 miles like that. And next thing they know, they set their sag and they're like, oh my god, like the bike turns and handles and does all these things so well. I can't believe I rode this long like that. Well, now the technology is taking that out of the equation, so that as a rider, you've got less to worry about. The bike is always set correctly, and that's going to translate to a much more fun and a much better ownership experience. Because if you're riding a motorcycle with your suspension totally out of whack, you're just gonna never, either you're gonna just get used to riding a motorcycle that's poorly set up, which isn't great, and you're never gonna really see what the bike could actually do. So the other thing I like too is that I don't always have to worry about making adjustments because I'm so, I guess, crazy anal about having everything set properly. I don't have to worry about that anymore. If I want to throw my lady on the back and go for a ride, or we're gonna go, on an adventure, or go out somewhere on the bike, I don't have to make any adjustments to my suspension. Just let's go. If I want to throw all my bags on, I'm going to go on a big ride. I just load up everything I want, jump on the bike, and go. And that is so awesome, in my opinion, to have. And just to have that one more item not to worry about. Fuel capacity on the bike. I don't want to throw the number incorrectly, but I can tell you that I am seeing close to 180 miles out of the first couple tanks of gas that I've done. The first tank of gas that I ever had on the bike didn't go far because I was railing on it to do a break-in, and I wasn't, you know, I just was burning gas. So I can't really speak to that, but let's see if we're clear. Cool. So fuel economy seems to be pretty respectable. Seat comfort, like I mentioned, we're using this low seat right now that I'm trying out. The low seat appears very comfortable. It's supportive. It's wide enough. I don't feel any hot spots in the seat. So I'm pretty sold on it. I don't see why not. It gives me that extra ground, or I keep saying ground clearance, but that extra, I guess, ability to, it gives me an extra inch to work with, which, hey, always helps. And yeah, God, I gotta say, for Harley coming out with this bike, being this is their first year, I think that they have a winner. I mean, I can't wait to see what the upcoming years and kind of how the development continues, because this bike is already exceptional, and to make it even better, as they will, is going to be pretty amazing. And gosh, the truth is, I could see, you know, suspension updates, things like that they're going to do. Maybe they're gonna have revised dampening like everybody does year to year. Oh, new graphics and updated suspension settings. That's gonna be the usual. But really, other than that, like, I don't think a whole lot. I mean, it feels really good. This motor though. Woo! God almighty. I mean, this thing gets you into trouble fast. I mean, I keep looking down and going, my God, I should not be going this fast right here at all. I mean, but it's too fun. It's just too much fun. So look, here's the overview. Suspension with the active ride height is a game changer. Overall dampening, I wouldn't say the suspension necessarily is incredible in terms of, like, it doesn't stand out to me from other bikes. I think there's many other brands that are making suspension that is as well set up, if not better. Nothing revolutionary there, but with the active ride height adjustment, it's a game changer there. Like, I would take this setup over what I've got on other adventure bikes to have this feature and that confidence. So to me, suspension here is a win. Gets my approval. As far as the motor is probably the biggest shock. Like I said, if you've ridden a Harley or you have any past experience, throw it out the window. You got to ride this to really understand. There's no resemblance to your Harley. I've got a Road Glide with 117 cubic inch motor on the CVO, and I thought, oh well, that's pretty fast for an 800-pound machine. This will probably be similar. No, this will smoke it in every which way, except the exception that this bike has the ability to be a higher rever, and it's just a it's just a different animal. It's a European feeling bike, and it loves to rev. It loves to rev. That's for sure. And the handling, I mean, gosh, whoever gets on a Harley and says, wow, yeah, I'm already sure it's going to be a really well handling bike, like it's laughable, because My God, God, every Harley I ride, I just think is just like, I don't know how it ever makes it through, you know, I don't know. I don't know. They're never well set up, let's be honest. But this is like, where did this come from? I mean, how did this happen? I don't know. It's so good. So engine's a win, suspension's a win, braking, you know, nothing revolutionary. They used tried and tested components that have a good reputation. They work exceptionally well, and they work exceptionally well here. You know, the nice thing is that they've matched components. They gave you an extremely powerful motor, and they made sure to give you the brakes to stop it, and that's really important. Wind protection, at least for me, trying now in the different style helmets, I'm blown away. That is a winner over my other bikes by a light year. I mean, I could argue my KTM 890 has the worst adventure bike wind protection by far, and the argument is, well, it's for off-road. Yeah, but how the hell do you get there, right? Like, you gotta ride to get to the trails, so you're miserable the entire time until you get there, and then when you get there, you're so happy to be on it. On this, you're just happy to go everywhere. Now, you are not going to, in my opinion, be able to go anywhere as adventurous, so to say, on this bike as you would on some of the more hardcore adventure bikes. I don't think that that's where the direction of this really is for. This is where I'm going to throw my gear on. I'm going to travel. I'm going to go sightsee. And if there's a destination that I need to take a fire road or kind of a rural road to get to, no hesitation, I would do it on this bike. But I see myself running a 50-50 style tire on this bike through the entire life of the ownership, and I don't see any reason to have to run anything different. I think in addition to that, oh man, I mean, I can't think other than maybe slightly better feeling switchgear. What I'd want to change, the lighting, the headlights are fantastic. You know, they are more than adequate. I would probably still want to run some sort of an auxiliary light like I have on the BMW, because, you know, when you're on a completely dark road, having that extra wide flood is nice, but Harley has a great beam pattern, no dead spots, you know, nothing that really stands out. So they did a good job on the lighting. And I'm sure the aftermarket is going to absolutely attack this bike with everything under the sun. So I can't wait to see everything that's out and available for it. But gosh, Harley, bravo, you did an amazing job on this bike. And I am so impressed. I really am. So if you're in the market and you're looking for this bike and you made it this far through my video, I have set up a deal with a local dealership in Southern California called Biggs Harley Davidson in San Marcos. And I will put, all the information in the description to set it up there. If you're interested in buying one of these bikes, they are willing to give all my viewers, all you have to do is call the phone number and speak to the person listed. His name is Mark Bradley. And speak with Mark, let him know that you watch this channel and you want to get a Pan America or any other Harley, and they are going to be offering every viewer a no BS, no COVID nonsense deal on one of these bikes. And all you have to do is call and talk to them, and that's it. There's no catches, no nothing. And in a day of COVID where every dealer is marking things up to the moon and telling you, well, it's supply and demand, right? Which it is, but you know, nobody wants to get screwed on everything. So these guys are willing to cut all the BS, change the game, and bring things back to normal. And I highly suggest giving them a call if you're in the area, or even if you're willing to come and make a trip out of it. So I'll put that information in the description. I got my bike from them, and awesome guys. Mark's a great dude, and yeah, so that's something extra if you're interested. And again, all the information will be in the description. So please ask me any more questions. I'm always willing to make another video or touch on things. I will do as much as I can. So, you know, I thought that dog was loose. So please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I hope I've touched on everything for the most part. And I know my videos are long, but I'm trying to cover for somebody who wants to spend that $20,000, and I want to try to give as many specifics as I can. So hopefully I did and didn't bore the crap out of you. I know a lot of you listen to my videos without even looking at it and just listen, and I'm okay with that. If you liked it, drop a thumbs up, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and hope everybody's doing well. All right, see you later.